Hey everyone, Andrew Logan here. Welcome to a Facebook Live. We're also on the podcast, The Way Up Podcast, episode 270. And as always, when we have Facebook Lives for podcast episodes, that means I have an incredible guest on. If you're watching on the stream, you might be able to tell from the t-shirt that I'm wearing that we have the man, Michael Bernoff from Average Sucks, who is an absolutely incredible trainer when it comes to confidence and communication, amongst many things, but they're the two things that we want to focus on today. And I want to share more about my interactions with Michael, what I've learned from him, the events that I've been to recently. But before I get into that, I just want to talk super quickly about what we're going to go through today, setting up the call, because in sales, and whether it's direct sales, whether it's affiliate marketing, network marketing, whatever it is, we all know about the scripts, the templates, the PDFs, follow this, follow that. But the reality is, if we don't have our confidence in place, if we can't really communicate our passion and our excitement, the scripts aren't going to work. So with that, I want to bring on the absolute legend who can really, truly help you with your confidence and your communication. Michael Bernoff, absolutely honored to have you on the podcast, on the live today.
It's an absolute honor to be here, and you have done some incredible episodes. I will tell you, I've had a chance to watch what you've been up to over the last several years, just since we've even connected, and absolutely amazing the gift that you're giving so many people. And I think it's so fascinating. I've been around the direct sales world since the 90s, and it's weird to say, I shouldn't say that. Maybe early 2000s, I sound old, right? And what's interesting is the fact that you're across the world and we're on video doing this, and we get a chance to broadcast and make a difference in people's lives, in their homes, in their basements, and their offices, outside at the pool. Some people, it's incredible. So I just want to thank you for asking me to do this and making the time to share what's worked with people that want it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I had a little laugh because my first exposure into the industry, into sales and direct sales, was 2004. And I had to put a suit on and catch the bus to the hotel and then sit and wait in the lobby for the room to open. And then, that was how you discovered it, right? And it was all that process.
Which company was that back then?
So that was with a company called USANA. And so I was introduced by friends and it was all, to hear about the company, to learn more about the scripts and the templates and all those things we're going to talk about. That was just the process just to even start the communication. There were so many steps that we had to go through and so many hurdles. And obviously 2020 dragged some people kicking and screaming into the 21st century with technology. But now that we can have this conversation, and I will just say, I want to focus on your history, obviously. But Yes, Michael and I met virtually multiple times over the last few years, but we actually finally met face-to-face a few weeks ago over there in Scottsdale. And again, I was able to sit there and sit by the pool and create some reels and create some content in between the sessions of the amazing core event. And we'll talk about some of Michael's events and how you can learn more and follow him in a sec. But I'd love to start at the start with you, Michael, of how you ended up in this communication space here, helping people with their confidence and with their communication, and really focusing on helping people make more sales through controlling those emotions and those processes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I could start back at the beginning. Like my mentor up there, Jim Rohn, would say, there's Jim, right? Jim would say, if he was here, he'd say, you got to start at the beginning if you want to know where you're headed. And when I first got into sales and direct sales back like you did, doing phone cards back in the day. Now, I don't know if you're old enough to even know what a phone card is, Andrew, but we used to have these little cards, and to dial a number, you had to 1-800-476-5132, pin 4176 before you even dial the number. So when I was in college at 17 years old, I got introduced to direct sales, and I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great. I had no idea what it was. To me, it's like, get 3 people in my deal, make an extra $400, I can hit the bar. Do you know what I'm saying? That was my thing. And while I was out, I talked to a couple more people. I'd meet them the next day and I'd get them in. And I did what old people would call pushy sales back then. Being from New Jersey, I'd push and I'd sell, and I didn't realize what I was doing was working, and it was mildly effective, but it was completely not duplicatable. It was completely based on just persistence, and it wasn't anything really enjoyable. And I think what happened was I had a mentor early on that said, Michael, I don't know if it's people want to say yes to you or they have no ability to say no, and they're just agreeing, and that's why they disappear afterwards. So I was really good at getting people started, and then it ended. And it wasn't until you asked me about how I got started in really helping people. It was my third year of college, which should have been my third year. I didn't do very well in school for 2 years because I didn't belong there. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. The worst place to put an entrepreneur is in college. I'm just going to tell you, it's the stupidest move in the world, paying a bunch of money to be structured. And I'm an ADD unstructured guy. And I was invited to not come back to Arizona State, right? Like I was said, maybe you should do something else. So I went to a little junior college. And for a few $100s, I took this class, and it was on sales. And I'd never thought about sales. And this guy gives this list. It looked like this list. And it's like, pick a book and read. I'm like, read Schmeed. I'm going to read. I'm not going to freaking read. I'll pretend I read it, right? I'll find the cliff notes. And I'm reading through like the books. And it was like boring stuff. Like there were books like Wealth of Nations. I don't even know what that is. Or like How the Economy Began, or read about Greenspan, or all this stuff. And there was one book. And remember, single 19-year-old man, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I found that book at the library, and I took it out, and I don't think I even read it. I read maybe 3 pages. And in 3 minutes, I realized something really big happened in my life. I realized, wait a second, you could get better at these things. I was waiting for a magical day that it was either going to happen, or it was like, Jimmy's good at influencing and I'm not. And I'm just going to assume they are, and maybe one day if I work hard, I'll get there. I had no idea until that day that you could get better at this stuff. So as I started realizing the gateway to making the business work, and the thing that the greatest leaders had is they did things different than I was doing. So I was trying to sell, they were influential. I was pushing hard, they were being effective. So it took me about 3 years at that point, but right around that point, I'm like, wait a second. I've been thinking these things in my head for a long time, but maybe there's something to this. That's the short version of how I opened my eyes to this idea and how it started my business growing in a big way. And I realized the more I read, the more I listened to, the more money I made.
Yeah, I love it. I did have to again laugh when you talked about phone cards, because we were just having the conversation with our 17-year-old daughter just the other day. So I finished school 99, and I went overseas and lived in Scotland, and I was working in a boarding school there in the middle of nowhere in central Scotland in 2000. And I remember having those phone home cards, but
it
was $1 a minute or something. And so even
we thought it was a great deal.
Yeah, and it was very much to use an acronym of yours, like get to the point when you ring home, because it's costing us $1 a minute. So just tell us that you're alive, and then leave. And then so sure enough, our daughter is heading over to that exact same school in 2025 to do a gap year and live and work over there and experience the Scottish culture. And she had a Zoom interview, and she was asking me, she was a little bit nervous beforehand and asking me just what kind of questions I was going to ask. I'm like, darling, I went there in 2000. There was no Zoom. You just rocked up and hoped that everything kind of worked out. And if not, well, figure it out while you're there. So just that, again, the communication process. And I think probably just brings up a really good point to hit here is obviously we're in a very digital social media world. And I think we can get lost in the fact that, I mean, we're using a StreamYard software here. We're using Facebook. We're on a podcast. We'll be on YouTube and all those sorts of things later. But it's still two people having a conversation. We're still two people who need to communicate. We're using a different medium, but I think we get so caught up in the medium that we forget about the actual process. And people can get so caught up in, and I was just following one of your social media influence courses, and we were just talking about, is it a reel? Should I do a live? Should I do a story? Should I do a long post or a short post? And it's like, well, we're probably missing the point that you need to communicate who you are and what you do, rather than getting caught up in, is it a reel, is it a live, is it a story? So it's probably a great thing to unpack while we're here in a social media platform.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a big thing. So as you're saying that right there, I believe the biggest issue people have with social media is they think it's different than communication, because it's not. And yes, YouTube is for a different audience, no different than a hockey game versus a tennis match. It's different. But at the end of the day, once you understand the median, the message is very, very simple. So I think what people need to recognize is all social media offers you the ability to do is to promote, to share, to show what it is you have going on. And you've just got to learn how to use that media in an effective way. I don't think most people have learned how to build relationships anyways, right? So I think the reason social media doesn't work for most people is it happens so fast and the reaction happens so quickly that people were bad at it, right? So let me ask you this question, Andrew. Who sat down with you when you were a kid and taught you how to have meaningful, useful, effective, coherent relationships? I'll start getting my pen out and you could tell me the names of the people who really taught you this.
Well, I mean, how long have we got, Michael? Because I mean, like,
on a serious note, I don't think anyone ever sat you down and taught you, did they?
Yeah, the answer's zero, right? Yeah, it's not like it's not a long, exhaustive list. I mean, our parents and teachers offer elements and they offer tidbits, but as far as a dedicated conversation, I think most of us are all going to answer zero, aren't we?
So what if I said there really isn't a class except for life on how to learn how to have better relationships with people, and the majority of people are not using the ability of direct sales to accept the fact that in the next 2 to 3 years, when you get better at relationships, there's elements of this. I watch people, like I was really good at the one date. Like I was really good at like getting you in the door. I was really good at begging you to stay, but I wasn't really good at getting you to actually do anything. So I'd set up shitty expectations. I would either tell you how hard it was going to be up front or how easy it was going to be. I'd get you excited. I couldn't figure out why I didn't do stuff. So I truly believe most people, the reason your business is not where you need it to be is you naturally have not decided that you're going to learn how to be a relationship builder. I've got friends that have mastered the art of building relationships on social media. And because they do that, what happens is, I don't mean friendships, I mean relationships, real connection with people. And when you master this, this is what allows people to get a chance to grow. Like when I used to, back in the day, I would find school teachers were wonderful people to bring in to direct sales. Even A.L. Williams, if you read that book, all you do is all you can do and all you can do is enough, right? If you read the book, A.L. Williams built his entire company back in the day, life insurance, teachers and coaches, because they wanted more money. They were motivated, but they already knew how to communicate at some level. And they had that ones that were good at teaching, understood how to one-on-one help somebody get it. So we've got to learn how to be great teachers at what it is we do. And I think a lot of people, we could sell well, but we don't build great relationships. And you don't want to build like friendships. We want to build relationships. Those are two very different things.
I absolutely love it because you bring up a good point that I wanted to sort of circle back to from the first thing we were talking about, where you were able to bring people in and some of them may have been kicking and screaming and they just came in because they didn't want to say no to you, but we couldn't get that duplication process going. And we know that, you know, however you call duplication, systemization, you know, however we label it, the reality is we can get really caught up in that, you know, I want to go out and find real estate agents because they're really good at sales, instead of finding people who can connect. And we can get this like one level deep growth, but there's people who are selling and there's people who are influencing. And I know in the time that we've met, I've purchased a lot of your programs. I've flown all the way. I flew all the way to America to spend 3 days with you just last month. But it was because I was influenced by what you could teach me. You never sold me anything. You just showed me what you had, and I took the things that like I felt were a benefit for me. The others that I didn't think were a benefit to me just yet, I didn't. But it wasn't about like, well, hey, I feel like I've been backed into a corner. It was, I know this person can help me with the next thing I need to learn. Because if we talk about, again, what is duplication? It's teaching a process, showing people a process that they can follow. And so the people who have great success aren't the quote unquote great salespeople. They're the people who are learning a process. They're learning the way and going the way so that they can turn around and then show the way. And, you know, leaders go the way, and so that they can turn around and show the way. We've got to do our apprenticeship essentially in communication and influence, and then turn around and show people, take people through that process as well.
So I think the interesting thing about this, I was talking to Mike Potikin, who introduced us originally today, and one of the things I said to Mike, I said, I think sales is the thing that we have to do before we become influential, and I think sales is building that toughness up, like Jerry Clark used to call the rhino skin that we need. I don't know if you remember Jerry back in the day, the coach and trainer, and building that rhino skin. So I think all of us need to learn what sales is. That means there's going to be a lead, which is someone who's semi-interested, and then they eventually become a prospect, and then eventually we need to nurture them, and we need to share and help them with their objections. Yep. Once we learn that, what I really do is I don't really do much sales training. I usually pick up people like yourself that have been in the game for a while or are willing to say, I've already figured out a lot of the elements of sales. I've done it from time to time. I'm ready to up my game. And now it's time to become pick me. I want to become influential, because you can't skip the process. So I'll tell everyone out here, everyone needs to get their team. There's no shortcutting this. You might get a duplication, get three, and they'll get 9 people, and then the person quits and you call that duplication. That is not. The greatest duplicatable process is, can you get a human being that has never learned sales to learn sales for about a year, that eventually become an influential person, or find someone who's already great at sales. Like I had a guy named David Bramwell. I brought David onto my team in 2002. He was amazing right off the bat. Like he came in, brought 12 people. But David was a Marine recruiter. He was a United States Marine recruiter, which means he would literally go to the mall, walk up to young boys and go, "What's up, Devil Dog?" And people would go, "What do you mean? Oh man, you're not a Marine? I call Devil Dogs Marines. That's what they are. Come with me." And he would recruit them and send them across the world to go fight for our country. Well, that guy's selling nutraceutical products. It was very, very easy. He already had it. So at some point, the truth is we need to tell people, listen, for the first year, we're going to learn basics. You're going to have to learn some skills, bobbing and weaving, learning some sales, figure it out. Once you learn that, then I'm going to teach you how to become an influential person. So the reason you came across the country was you were already at that phase. You're like, you know what, Michael, I'm doing good. And I'm doing great in certain areas. I want to do extraordinary. And that's the level of play that we're looking for with people that really want to step up that game. So when I teach influence to people, it's how to, like, sales is the process and the structure, the leads and the prospect, and get them to buy and cover your bills and do all that stuff. Influence is precision. It's a sniper from 3,000 feet away. Say a few words and boom. Like, no one will accuse me ever of selling, because I'll speak for 12 hours a day for 5 days straight and go boo and turn $1 million event. So the reason I'm telling you that is sales is something all of us need to get great at. Influence is something we need to decide to become after we learn that process.
Yeah, I love it. Now, just speaking of communication around the world, I just want to point out again, we got Sharon from Sydney, we got Adam from America, we've got Rui from Portugal, we got Mike from across the road from you. We got people all around the world tuning in, which is
Portugal. We got Rui from Portugal. We got Adam. We got Sharon. This is awesome.
So Adam was my accountability partner at Core, so he's jumping on, which is really, really awesome. But I want to talk about the elephant in the room. So that all sounds great, but I am petrified of picking up my phone and sending that first message. And I love what I'm doing. I love the vision. I love the excitement. I love the product, the system, the whatever I've aligned myself with. And I am absolutely excreting bricks, to use an Aussie term, about picking up the phone and messaging you, Michael. How do I take on that challenge?
Okay. Well, would you like me to make something up, or do you want me to tell you the truth?
Well, I think everyone here wants the truth, and that's why I connect with you, because you tell the truth.
So the bullshit answer is that everything will be okay. Don't sweat it. Everything will be fine. You'll be good at this. The answer is you're not going to be that great right off the bat. So I'm just going to tell you, like Sharon says, Nike it. I wouldn't even recommend it either. It isn't just do it. Number one is
Sorry, can I just super quickly interrupt? Because I think this is like, I don't want to just miss this point. I know you're obviously about to really hit it, but that whole process of it's just a numbers game. Every no will get you closer to a yes. Well, that's not true if we don't improve this, right? We're just going to keep getting no's until we actually improve this situation.
You've got to understand what you're getting yourself into. You got to understand what you're willing to do. And a lot of us haven't really decided. The reason I wrote my book, Average Sucks, is for a very, very for a particular reason why I wrote this book. You got the shirt on. Has nothing to do with being better than others, is that we have already structured relationships with people in our lives that see us a particular way. So because they see us a particular way, a lot of us don't want to rock the boat. So by sending a message, Julie, I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity. Johnny, I want to invite you to a meeting if people do that. Or, hey, check out this Zoom. You're in a pickup line at school. You got pickup lines over where you're at? Okay, pick up the kids at school outside, right? And what happens is you're going to have to risk the structure of how you're seen by others. And we think that they see us in a very, very particular light. But this is the part a lot of people don't recognize. People don't spend a lot of time thinking about you. They don't care, and you are not as important to them as you think you are. So our ego and our selfishness keeps us safe, and it gets us to make up a story that we're scared of rejection versus understanding. I covered this the other day on our business success GPS call, is like when you were 3 years old or 6 years old, you're 2 years old. How old are your kids now, Andrew?
Jack's 9, she's 17.
Okay, so you're a 9-year-old. I got a almost a 12-year-old, and I got a 22-year-old. So you and I got that spread. Now, what's interesting about this is when they're 3 years old, they're perfect. They're at home. Everybody loves them. Everything's great. They turn about 5. Your wife packs a tuna fish sandwich. They go to school and it smells, and they get picked on or teased. Am I correct? And they're like, what the hell? People don't like me. Like, I'm going to avoid that feeling. So what happens is we wind up being 9. We tell everybody we like this. We wear silly pants to school. We look silly, and then we don't want to look bad. So what happens is we wind up being 25. We get so excited about an opportunity, but it reminds us like the tuna fish sandwich. So the question is, we think that people hold us in a very, very high regard. I will tell you that people are very, very into themselves, and they think that they're great. So what happens is we're scared to call people because we want to tell them about an opportunity instead of recognizing what people truly respond to. So people love feeling incredible. They love being smart. They love feeling great. So what happens is we want to feel great. So we're like, I'm going to call this person. What if they don't like me? What if it doesn't work out? And we're worried that they're going to make fun of us. Well, here's the thing I'm going to tell you. You shouldn't be worried if they're going to say no to you. What you should worry about really is saying no to yourself and avoiding the conversation. So these people are practice. So if we want to go into this, we've got to figure out how to do this better than most people. So if I were to call you, Andrew, I would assume, Andrew, you like you, correct?
Yes.
And I would assume you see me as a school teacher because that's what I've been for years. And you're a banker and I'm a school teacher, correct?
Yes.
So if I call you and I tell you to come join the school teacher's business, and I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable because I'm making you feel insecure, you should reject me and say no. So my question is, how do I get on the same team of this person I'm going to call versus how do I call and share this opportunity with them? I guarantee no one has discussed this in the history of direct sales. The person you're calling is on your team. So I'm going to talk to you about the 20% that makes the 80% difference. So if I'm calling Andrew, who's a banker, and I'm going to say, Andrew, we have been friends for 5 years. I consider you massively smart. You're very intelligent, and you have done better with money than Mary and I. Are you going to be upset to get that phone call?
Not at all, because you bring up that great point that I've got to, if you're going to talk to me about money and I'm a banker, I've got to admit that I'm not good enough with money. And that's going to be really hard for my ego to handle, isn't it?
Very much so. And I'll tell you, one of the things I've noticed with you is you're an incredible investor. So I will tell you, Mary and I have started looking at a couple of investments. Yes, we've got our 401k, which you love. And yes, we've got our investment portfolio, which you love because you're a banker, correct?
Yes.
Yet we're also looking for investing our time differently. So let me ask you a question. How open are you to getting around some people that are doing big things in health with money? And what's interesting about it is we've created a club and a group that we've connected with that are super cool. So I'm just reaching out and I'm connecting with people that are open to getting in a community of people that are doing well financially. They're fun to be around. They're super positive. And I just thought you'd be a great fit for our community.
It's a pretty enticing invitation.
Now, the reason I say that is if I call you about a business opportunity, you've already made up your mind, correct?
Yeah. And
I'm not going to call you ever about a business opportunity. Every network marketing company, you mentioned USANA earlier. That's when I was in USANA years ago, back with the Wentz game back in the old days, right? Dave Wentz and all those guys. And we had, who was the speaker back then? The POW guy. What the heck was his name? I can't think of it right now. Great speaker, Dennis Waitley. And what was interesting was Dennis Waitley was involved with the company. And if I were to have said back then, I would have said, this is such a great opportunity to get around positive, like-minded people. We're meeting on Tuesday. I got a really cool group we're going to get together. So I just wanted to see if you're open. Now, why I'm telling you that is I'm not hiding anything. I'm repositioning how we do this, and I'm repositioning why I'm calling you. And the reason I'm doing that is you've already heard business opportunity. I'm not hiding the fact, but I realize if you want a business opportunity, you already would have found one. We're looking for a community of people to grow together, be positive with, and make a couple of bucks.
Yeah, I love it.
So if you're scared of picking up the phone, you're selling shit you don't believe in.
Yeah, I love it for a number of reasons. And I always talk about, my history was as a physiotherapist, as a physical therapist, as you call them in the States. And so often you would get the cold call or the person coming into the practice saying, Andrew, I have something for your patients. And there was just that immediate, like, hang on, like, because you're suggesting that I don't know what's best for my patient. And there was an immediate block where the person is trying to sell me a way to treat my patients that I haven't figured out yet. And so straight away, you're just blocking up and you're immediately putting up the red flags and stuff of how dare you tell me how to do my job. And so, they obviously came in with the best of intentions and you're sure the product was great, but you just had such a block to listen to their story because it made me change how I felt about myself as a physiotherapist. And so then when I started into this industry, when Angie and I got started, again, there's always that, just go out and tell all your friends and family. And I was just turning 30 and I had a pretty fun 20s. I spent most of my 20s trying to tick off as many bucket list things as I could and, did some fun and some silly things. So then for me to then suddenly turn around at 30 years old and say, hey, actually, I'm all about, health and wellness and financial mastery. And it was a change. It was a huge change in my persona. And so many people were like, hang on, that's not the right you. Right. And again, there's immediate resistance because of who I am and who I thought I would be and who I wanted to be. And it's people's immediately putting up that block because we just rush into these things where we make a huge personality change before we sit there and say, actually, hang on, I need to just learn a couple of basic skills and really make sure that my invitation is talking to them rather than just talking about who I'm becoming.
Your passion will get certain people that fall for passion. I will tell you, most people die in a passion puddle. They're excited because they're sweating because they're excited and they're drowning in the passion puddle with sweat. They're spitting because they're excited and they're drowning in a passion puddle. And I will tell you, passion is not how you build your business. Passion keeps you going. And it's good to be passionate around your people, while you're at your churches and temples and everything, be passionate. But passion is not how you're going to recruit. Passion is the feeling you feel inside. Connection is what we're going to get with other people. So if I called you as the physiotherapist, I would have called you up. I wouldn't have said, hey, I got something for your patients. I would say to you, you probably already know this about it because you were on the cutting edge of everything. Yet I also know that you are super busy. And if you did miss this, I don't want to be the one responsible for that. You missed it. So if you got a couple of minutes, I can go over a couple of things with you to make sure that you're activating them.
Yeah. Love it. Because again, we're like, just speaking from a health professional point of view, we're so flat out busy with our patient load that we do neglect a few things, in particular ourselves. And so if the invitation is about, hey, I know you're probably worn out, here's a way that might be able to help you and your energy, they're going to figure out what to do the next step. They're going to figure out, okay, well, how do I take this and help and impact more people? But we're talking to them in a way that's going to help them. And so I think we got this great symbiotic relationship here where if we can work on our communication skills, we can improve our confidence in reaching out. And then obviously this it's gonna compound effect and snowball the other way, where the more confidence and posture we have in that reach out, in that connection, the more success we're going to have. And we start these, snowball effects, as Warren Buffett would say.
Well, this is the interesting thing, and it hit me as I'm explaining this, and this is the direct push towards something that I teach, and I want to be very clear that I'm directly recommending something. Over the last 20 years, I realized that an indirect route is better than a direct route unless a direct route is better. So I'm going to say that again. If you would have already woke up in the morning and you already picked up the phone, and your team would have picked up the phone and already made the sales, they would have done it already. So if they're a just do it person, that's 3% of the population. They already would have done it. So one of the genius things that we invented 20 years ago with our call to action process of how to get people into action is we develop people to gain the skill, the know-how, and the thinking without making the call. So when they get to the call, they're good at the call. So for instance, we trick your brain on how to be a decide and do person doing something that has nothing to do with sales. So by the time you ask yourself to do sales, you'll actually do it. And you're like, well, what do you mean, Michael? Well, what I mean by that is, back to the David example. David wasn't selling. David was walking up to strangers and talking to them. The lady that's good at Bible studies already talks to people. She's probably good at meetings. She had never done an opportunity presentation, but she does Bible studies every Sunday and Wednesday. So what happens is I get people to become more confident in other areas of their life, so it parlays into their business. So I'll look at someone and go, you should be selling. And then I'm like, oh, let me help them sell. I help them sell by not selling at all. That sounds really, really, really weird. So when I coached ice hockey for years, I'm a hockey player. I just got done playing. I got this red mark still on my head from my helmet from about 45 minutes ago. I got back from a game, right before we got started here. And what's interesting is when I used to coach, I told the parents, I can't make them better players because some of these guys are better than me. But what I can make them is better men, better humans. And so if we could become more confident people, we've got a chance to sell. So what I do is I teach people how to become more confident humans with a very particular process, which has nothing to do with sales. People are going to be like, well, when are you going to teach us the sales shit? Dude, good salespeople, they are good at their life. They're confident, they're decisive, they're congruent, they do what they say they're going to do. I promise if you have trouble in selling, you're also the same type of person that goes to the top of a diving board and negotiates why you're there. Okay, the guy that's really good at selling goes up the board, jumps off the damn board. The person that's not good at selling climbs the diving board, gets to the end, and has a long conversation with themselves. So what I do is I work on all the other areas of your life. We get those cleaned up, and then boom, when it comes to sales, you'll just naturally do it. So I will tell you, an indirect route is better than a direct route when a direct route is not being used.
I love it. It reminded me, and the name's escaping me. I was trying to think of it just then, but the top car salesman in the US, and I can't remember his name, and they asked him, like, what was your secret to success? And his secret to success was that
Joe Girard.
Yeah, and he took what's now a selfie with the owners of the new car, and they took a photo and he stuck it on his wall, and people would walk into the cubicle and they just saw hundreds and hundreds of happy faces of people with their cars. He kept in contact with them. He communicated with them. He sent them birthday wishes and postcards and all those sorts of things. He never sold these other people the car, essentially. He just showed them the community that he was building, showed them that he was communicating and listening with them, and he kept in communication with all his customers afterwards. And from that process, everything else becomes easier. He focused.
You knew you were getting sold with him. Like, I'll tell you, when you called him, you were calling to buy a car. Like this is the part people don't recognize. They're trying too hard. They don't realize that guy sold like 10,000 cars, right? So when you called him, you were buying. Folks, think about this.
You'd made that decision when you lifted the phone, right? That was the reality.
You've got to be willing to change how people see you. And we've got an entire process for a year that I'll walk people through where you train you and train others to change your perception. Write this down, everyone. 2 ways to change your life. One is change your actions. Long game. To start, it's the long game. Shorter way, change your perceptions, how you see you and how others see you. When you change how you see you and how others see you, you've got to go. You've got to change. Like, people come to me, they'll call me like I got people call me all the time. Michael, I'm going to fly to town. I'm going to give you $30,000. I want to spend eight hours with you. I get it regularly. And somebody's like, well, how did you get that? Well, here's the deal. That's how people see me. They pick up the phone, they whip out their credit card, and they buy a day with me. Why am I telling you that? Because it's how I see me and it's how I positioned other people to see me, because it's actually who I am. It was not fake it till you make it. Is decide to change your perceptions. Your average is holding you back. Boom. Two things. Actions will take a long time, but it's better than nothing. Change your perceptions. That's the big thing. And you change your perceptions by going willing to be like, I'm willing to be seen different. Okay. And if you're not, that's the problem. So if all you want to do is be seen the same way, well, then that's what you get.
I love it. And I'm just checking out the comments here. Everyone's getting so much value from this.
This is fun.
I want to pose a question for you, and then very conscious of your time. So
yep.
I want to pose a question for you here. So again,
and I got about 10, 15 minutes, whatever you need.
Perfect. I've just started. So again, I've just started. I'm really, really passionate, and I want to get out there because we're entrepreneurial. We're excited. We can be a bit impatient in this industry, especially financially, which is what I love to talk about, the impatience of financial mindset. But again, I want to see results, and we want to get someone from into that belief process and start getting them results and all those sorts of things. Yeah. How do you have the conversation with me of, actually, let's just hit pause for a second and just make sure we've got we've got some basics.
I'm not going to want to slow you down, because I used to do that. I used to slow people down and then I turned them off. So I don't want to slow you down. I want to get clear real quick, Andrew. So you're a brand new distributor. You're selling liquid. I don't know what it is. A special what's that? Liquid vitamins, right?
Yep.
You're very excited. So I would say to you, Andrew, you want to get results, correct?
Yes.
What is your definition of results?
So I need to be making $300 a week.
Fantastic. Okay. So if you made 100, that's not a result.
That would be a result, yes. But so my goal would be $300 a week. My result would be the first check that shows up on my email.
Okay, very good. So let me ask you a question. Success is not this destination. It is going to be an emotion that you want to feel. So let me ask you, would you like to achieve success, or would you rather be a successful person?
I'd like to be a successful person.
Very good. So you've achieved success, you'll probably lose success. A successful person will always be successful. So you let me know how you want me to coach you.
Yeah. So I'm dedicated to the process of becoming a successful person.
Very good. So successful people do a series of things that get them results. So could I have you write down 15 to 20 things that if you do any of these, you're going to get there. And the more you do any of these, the better it is. Are you ready? Any of these are successful. Enrolling somebody in the business. That will happen. Getting a check. Would you like that to happen?
Yes.
What about handing out a business card, whether they call you back or not? Is that better than nothing?
It's connection. It's practice.
What about sending a direct message or an email to someone?
Yeah, it's going to the gym and doing the push-ups.
What about going to a meeting?
Yep, I've taken action.
Very good. What about getting on a Zoom training?
I'm taking action.
Very good. What about somebody saying no to you and it not bothering you?
I'm growing. I'm developing.
What about getting some of your nose out of the way?
Again, it's part of my nose. The yeses build the business and the no's build the
personality. What about making a list of 100 people?
Yep, action.
So what if I told you that we need to get people to realize that's the reason success is so narrow for people? It's make a sale or get a check. And then they get depressed, miserable, and they're out. These are the same people that think they need a Lamborghini to be happy, and the same people that think they need sex every minute of the day and they need everything where they want it, and the bullshit concepts inside their head. So what we've got to get people to recognize is there's about 20 ways to achieve what they want, and we need to do them all more often. So if I had a new person, I would say any of these 20 things in a day, 1 is great, 4 is above average. Hand out a business card, or talk to a person, or talk to a stranger, or do a meeting, or show someone the plan, or give out a VHS back in the day. Nowadays, send them an MP4, right? Or set up a 3-way call with your person, or set up a conference call, or do any of these. And what happens is when you give people a multitude of things they can do, and then I'd ask them, how many did you do today? I did 4 of them. Great. As long as we're doing 3 to 4 of these things regularly, we will get somewhere. If we do 1 to 0, we're not going to get anywhere anytime soon. So with a new person, I would redefine success as not a check. It is not an enrollment. It is doing successful actions more often.
I love it. focusing on the process.
Well, what it is it's really reconditioning. I'm telling you, most people think that success is getting a check and getting on stage. And now that they're not on stage and they haven't got a check, they're not successful and they feel bad. Remember, success is an emotion. It is not a destination. When you feel successful, you breed success. When success is a destination, you're only happy for 5 minutes, period.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And well, to me, it's about setting expectations as well. It's setting expectations to start. And again, when I went to med school, there was that expectation that we're not going to let you touch alive people for a couple of years yet. And that was the expectation. And we signed up, and then we walked into the door knowing that we weren't even allowed to touch people who are alive yet until we could not make mistakes on people who'd already passed away. So it was just but that was the expectation. And again, we can set people up with these false expectations of selling the grand vision and forgetting about, okay, well, what's actually step one? What's actually step one in the process? And we send people on these huge journeys. And to steal a phrase from you, it's like we just, send them up to the 7th floor of a dark room and just say, just run around in that dark room and see what happens. And they're totally blind to just, how about we just get you starting the process and doing the reps and building from there. So let
me give you a scenario here. Let's backtrack a minute. So you asked me what you do with that new person, right? So I had a lady years ago, and she was a client of ours, and she had to go to the doctor over some pretty touchy medical stuff, right? Like really bad, right? Young lady, healthy, but her body wasn't working right. So I said, what's going to happen when you go to the doctor? She goes, let's go over all the options right now. What could happen? So she said, well, I could go there. And I said, what if you get good news? She goes, I'll probably cry. I said, okay. I go, what if you get bad news? I'm going to cry. What if they don't show up? I'm probably going to cry. What if they don't know an answer? I'm probably going to cry. So let's get it out of the way. You're going to cry. So what happens is there's only 4 things that could actually happen when we call a person. They can pick up or not pick up. Correct?
Yep.
They can be interested and buy immediately. They can blow us off and act interested and do nothing. They could tell us no, screw off, or they can give us a fake yes, no, and just never return our call. 5 things can happen. Knowing that what the 5 things are going to happen, it takes the fear out of it. If your friend saw, we grew up, did you grow up with Friday the 13th, the movies?
Yep. Freddy. Yep.
If you knew that after every sex scene, there's going to be a murder, sex scene, there's about to be a murder, correct? So it's coming soon, right? So I want you to think about this. So if your friend was sitting next to you and said, here's probably what's going to happen next, you're less scared, correct? So why don't we tell people there's only 5 things that could happen on that phone call. Right off the bat, they'll buy everything you have, which would be great. Probably not going to happen. Number 2, they listen to you, do nothing and book an next appointment and don't show up. Number 3, they don't pick up the phone at all. They're not there, right? Number 4, I can't even come up with 5 potential things that could happen. I don't think anyone's ever shared this with anybody. It's only 5 maybe things that could happen. And if you wrote them down on paper, I'm probably going to get one of these 5 on this phone call. The problem is it's well, what if this occurs and that could happen? And what if this, dude, there's a format. They're either going to say yes, they're not going to pick up the phone. They're going to say not interested. They're going to listen and book another appointment with you, or they're going to fake it and say, I'll call you later. There's your 5 options. One of those 5 are happening today. And if we recognize we could probably manipulate 3 of those long-term and get better at them to maybe get 20% more to buy, that's great. But that's all that's ever going to happen for any of us. And to think different is delusion. That's the 5 options. You play football, soccer, that game over there ever?
Yeah, AFL I grew up with, yeah.
Dude, there's offense and there's defense and there's a goal, there's a pass. You might head the ball. It might come off the body and there's a couple flags. It isn't as interesting as you think it is. Only about 6 things happen in every game, correct?
Yep.
We only need to get good at about 6 things.
Yeah.
1 of 5 things are happening on every phone call. The problem is no one ever tells anybody this.
I think it's funny, you just talk about that exact thing, because I just, on the last podcast episode, I just talked about this, real process. And I use the great tennis players like the Rogers, the Rafas, the Novak, Serenas, and Ash Bardys, and that they're not playing different shots. There's a forehand and a backhand and a serve, and that's kind of about it. And then they run around a court. They're just better at those handful of things. So
5 things can happen. We need to get good at all 5 things, correct?
That's it. And it's just focusing on those fundamentals. So again, I want to be really conscious of your time, Michael. Just a quick story about horror movies, because when Angie and I first started dating, like I said, I'd spent a lot of my 20s just traveling around. I hadn't really sat down and watched a lot of movies because I was doing a bucket list decade at that point. And Angie loves horror movies, but it meant that pretty much every horror movie she'd already seen. So we'd be sitting at home on a Friday night, with popcorn and watching a horror movie. And she'd sit there and say, ready? Watch the door, okay? Watch the door. And kind of took some of that shock and suspense and excitement out of it. But that's just her. Like, she loves to talk throughout a movie and she'd tell me where the jump scare was about to happen from. But what I will talk about seriously is I met you, as I said, a couple of years ago, and I read your book, and then I did Call to Action around this time last year. And I specifically remember it was perfect timing for me just with the time zones, because I was doing a lot of driving for Christmas then. You're driving around with everything for Christmas, and I could plug in and I could just listen to this audio training course. I learned so much there about my emotions, about my mindset, about communication, about confidence, about all those sorts of things. Absolutely incredible. And then, as I said, a couple of weeks ago, the core event with Michael, if you get the opportunity to go to that, it will absolutely impact you in so many incredible ways. And again, Michael sits there and trains this thing for 12 plus hours a day himself, and you are just wrapped. Like, I just sat there the whole time. And I've done a lot of personal development. I've done a lot of courses, programs, trainings, read a lot of books. I flew all that way just to be completely wrapped for 3 straight days with the training of Michael. So I want to just pop this up because just if you want help from Michael, here's where to start. So resultswithmichael.com is the best place to start. So if you're obviously watching on the visual on the Facebook or YouTube, it's up there. If you listen to the podcast, I'll pop it in the show notes there, www.resultswithmichael.com. And I know we've got a really cool offer for you there where you can save a lot of money using that website. Was there anything you wanted to just talk about with that side?
I'll tell you, like, if you're open that you don't have it all figured out already and you're one of these people, like, I will tell you, if you got a big old ego and you already got it figured out and you're like, I'm going to be good at this and my upline's great. And if you already think you're great, I'm the wrong guy to work with. And the reason I'm telling you that is I work with people that are like, I got something inside of me. I know that I'm capable of more. And I work with people that are obsessed with the idea that getting their message and their product, their service out of the world matters. And they're willing to go a different route, which means I work to make you a more effective human being. And as you become a more effective human being, what begins to happen is your life gets easier. So this starts, folks, I could have you by next Friday. You join us. You go to resultsofmichael.com. It's more than half price. It's better than our Black Friday sales. So literally go to resultsofmichael.com for a few $100 for the price of getting some food delivered for a family of 4. Okay. I'm going to work with you in some live, some digital, and we start next week. And if you're not, you can do it in January, whatever works better for you, February, March, or April. But it's really designed to do a couple things. Take more action. Be more effective, get results in your life. And more importantly, those things that you feel in your heart that you want to do, they're going to make a big difference for you. And after you enroll, take advantage of my book and shirt offer. Get one of these, the best prospecting tools you can ever have. I bet when you were traveling across the country and across your country and ours, people stop you in that, don't they?
Well, I know we have talked about this before, but like, especially my son, Jack, who's 9 years old, and he's at school right now, but all my evening trainings, he sits over there, he takes notes, he loves listening in, and he always says to me, how's the average sucks guys? Because I've got your average sucks water bottle, I've got the book, I've got the t-shirt, obviously, and he's always asking about you. So he just knows that, and he knows that when I put the shirt on this morning, and then dropped him at school before we jumped on this, he said, oh, you're talking to the average sucks guy. And I said, I am actually. We're about to jump on.
I'll take that branding. Great. We're doing great.
Yeah, look at that. So, Matt, I want to really, really thank you. Absolute honor to have a chat. And as I said, absolute honor to stand with you and get a photo and have a quick chat in between busy event for you and chat with Mikey. And Mikey and I went to the NFL the day afterwards, and then I was asleep by about 5 p.m. because I was so exhausted.
I bet you're exhausted, right?
Well, it was such a packed trip, wasn't it? I was over in Vegas the day before the event, connecting with Eric, and then over straight to you and all those sorts of things. But it was an incredible week. Angie was a bit worried that if I fell asleep, I'd mess up my body clock, but I was flying home anyway, so I was about to mess the thing up. So Mate, again, thanks for your time. Absolutely appreciate you. I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, and hopefully we'll see you face-to-face next year.
We will be doing this again, and we got to get out your way. And I really thank you for sharing us with your community. And I'll just tell everybody listening, really understand that 2024 does not have to be the same as 2023. It's a choice. And we make choices in our lives of the things we want to do and the people we surround ourselves with. You're with an incredible human being, being with Andrew. If you are somebody that really wants to grow, follow what he's doing. He's on the right path. I turn down way more of these interviews than I do. And the reason I'm here is I believe us as entrepreneurs, the group, the tribe that you have, it matters what we do. Because if we do not keep capitalism and entrepreneurship alive, and we do not teach it to our children and get good at it, it will die off. So I just want to tell you, our obligation is bigger than getting rich. It's keeping health, wealth, capitalism, and excitement and growth and entrepreneurship alive in the world. Because I'm just going to tell you, the biggest companies in the world are not dying us for be entrepreneurs. They want Amazon does not need entrepreneurs. They want to take our products and sell them. So we've got to stand strong. We got to work together, and we got to develop skills for the next generations to come. So thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you lots.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.